It is no secret that the Neko rig is super effective against heavily pressured bass and finicky bass. However, if you don't have everything just right, there are fish you are going to miss. Today's video, I'm going to give you 3 tips to make your Neko rig even more effective. So my first tip has to do with equipment. We have to use the most effective equipment to get the most out of the Neko rig. First, I fish it with a spinning rod, a medium power, fast action tip to be extra sensitive to sense those bites, and also have enough power to pull those fish out of docks. I usually fish braid to leader on all my spinning setups because of the line twist problems if you're using straight mono or fluoro. However, I do it on the Neko rig for extra sensitivity and the ability to change out my leader. If I'm fishing around docks, I'm using 10-pound either fluoro or mono as my leader. However, if I'm having more finicky fish and I'm not fishing around any of those things that could get me tangled up, I switch it up to the 8-pound. Now the Neko rig itself. I like to fish one of these Neko hooks most of the time with my Neko rig, obviously. However, there's times that I like to switch it up to a Neko hook that has some weed guards here when I'm fishing around some vegetation. Always have your Neko hook hooked in this form. If you have it upside down, when you come over laydowns, it will snag on the hook point, so you don't want to have your hook point pointed downward. I don't know if you can tell on this one, but I like to use these wacky rings on my Neko rigs. It makes them last a whole lot longer and gives me more use out of each worm that I'm using on the Neko rig. Now the part that makes a Neko rig, and that is the nail weight that we put in the worm. I like to use these that have these little heads on them. Therefore, when we're working the bait across the bottom, it's making these little tapping sounds, bringing more attention to our bait. I do want to bring to light that you can use more than just a standard Senko like this lunker log or this exo stick for the Neko rig. A couple other baits that I like to try every now and then is a robo worm, a little smaller of a worm bait, a little finessier. This is Tequila Sunrise, is one of my favorite colors. But I like to use this from time to time, smaller presentation, or something like a Lastec. Now this, the reason I like to use this is because it floats in the water and likes to stand up, giving this a completely different presentation than a Senko that will eventually fall flat. So when I'm using a Lastec on the Neko rig, this guy is standing straight up, which that just gives it a little different presentation, a little bit different view to the fish than your normal rig. However, when you do that, you're gonna have to use a little heavier of a weight to get the Neko rig down. Tip number 2 is where exactly do we need to fish the Neko rig to make it effective? There are 5 places I like to fish the Neko rig. Number 1 is under docks. This bait skips really well, easy to get under docks. Number 2 is rock piles, especially those on the end of points or on humps. Number 3 is hard bottoms that are easily identified on your fish finder. The ones that I find mostly are hard clay bottoms. Number 4 is shell beds. You find a shell bed, this is a great place to fish a Neko rig. Number 5, and one that's probably overlooked, is the weed edge of a grass line. There'll be some sparse grass in that area, so you're gonna make sure you wanna have a weed guard on your Neko hook, and that is an excellent place to fish the Neko rig. And I'm gonna give you a bonus, number 6, because it just came to my mind right now, and that is those large laydowns, not the ones that have little bitty branches, the ones that have lost all their little branches and just have the main branches coming out. This is also a good bait to fish around there. Might want to put a weed guard on there for that case as well. Tip number 3 is when do you need to fish the Neko rig? And primarily, when you know that there are bass in the area and they're just not biting, you need to pick up the Neko rig. This could be an area that you've had previous success for and for some reason they're just not biting that day. Or in another case here, you're fishing behind someone else and they're picking up some fish and you're not. This is more likely for a bank fisherman on a small body of water. If you follow them up with a Neko rig you're gonna pull the bass out that they missed. And the third place I like to pick this up is right after I miss a fish. If I just miss a fish on some other bait, whether it be a spinner bait, crankbait, whatever I'm fishing with, I'll pick up the Neko Rig and I'll throw it right behind it to see if I can get that fish to pick this guy up. A lot of times this is an excellent follow-up bait and you'll get that fish that you just missed. So I'm gonna give you one more bonus tip on how to fish this. Real simply, you want to cast it out there, and not only do you want to let the bait hit the bottom, you're going to want your line to sink down in the water column as well. And once that happens, you don't want to be doing heavy pops. You want little small pops. You want this guy to make 3 to 6 inch jumps in the water. So you want to keep it on the bottom and let the bait do the work. I promise you, it's a slow technique that will work. You just gotta be patient with it. I know the Neko Rig is super effective, but most of the time I like to fish with a bait caster. If you wanna know how to maximize your cast distance and your efficiency with a bait caster, make sure you check out this video right here. But until next time, see you later, fishing fam.